It's back! Cancel your Sunday plans for the next 5 months, folks, maybe 6, as NFL football returns. And of course, so does the Matchbook NFL betting podcast. Now, we had a pretty decent year last year, but this year we're stepping it up a notch. A few notches, actually, as we've made not 1, but 2 free agent signings. Maybe they aren't a free agent signing, who knows. On the bottom right of my screen, first of all, Drew Dinsick, a.k.a. the Whale Capper. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thank you again for having me. Let's get into this. It's the national nightmare. The international nightmare is over. Football is back. This is going to be fantastic.
Absolutely. Sundays will never be the same. Again, the top left of the screen, if you're watching us in video format right now, is Adam Chernoff. Adam, I think you might have been on twice with us last year, but you were so good at Matchbook Insights, so we've just got to keep you on each week this year.
I got the bump up from the Insights League to the video.
Yeah. You're a bit like Bo Jackson, or you're a dual player, baseball and football. Love it.
There we go.
There you go. Of course, our mainstay from last year's podcast, and our, what do we call it? Kind of a carry-on thing. Brad Allen, Professor. Prof, defenses still don't matter?
They still don't matter. I mean, if you read the Insights piece, I gave them one line. And, who can project defense this time of year?
Absolutely. Right, guys, we have a lot of games to get through today, so let's just get straight through it. We're going to start on Monday Night Football, first of all. The Houston Texans at the New Orleans Saints. 7-point underdog here at the Houston Texans. You can back that at 1.97 currently. The total is 52.5. Pretty high total, not surprising in this fixture. The money line currently, the New Orleans Saints at 1.37 and 3.72. The Houston Texans. Drew, you're making your debut on the Matchbook NFL Weekly podcasts. What's the angle on this one?
I think this is a nice spot for the dog here. I know that there's a lot of reasons to kind of shy away from backing a dog on the road on Monday Night Football in the Superdome. I mean, presumably the energy is going to be up. It's going to be a little bit. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge for these guys. But the matchups really here are all in favor of the Texans, especially at this point in the season. I'm going to go to bat a lot probably against Drew Brees this season. I already have quite a bit of stake against the Saints being kind of the team that, as everyone is expecting to be the perennial kind of powerhouse in the NFC. I do not feel that way about this team at all. And I need to see Drew Brees prove to me that his shoulder's better, that he's able to fire the ball downfield. Really, the only place you can attack this Texans team is the deep pass. And honestly, if they give them that look, hey, beat us there, make Ted Ginn beat us down the field, and you see, these lame ducks coming, Ted Ginn's way, and that connection isn't there, then I think it's going to be awfully tough for this Saints team, this Saints offense, to find purchase against the Texans defense, which is a pretty complete team. They have a nice ability to get after the passer. You have a Saints offensive line that's going to be looking for stability with the new center. And I think the upgrade that the Texans made on offense, bringing in Laramie Tunsil to help solidify their offensive line, while long-term that is an enormous problem to devote as much capital as they had into the offensive line, I think Laramie Tunsil is a difference maker. Deshaun Watson has a tendency to hold on to the ball too long as it is. And if you can put pieces around him to help kind of stave off the fierceness of the Saints pass rush, I think that gives them opportunity to score. And if you're going to be in this game, you're going to have to score. So with the high total like this, I think this sets up well for the Texans to kind of be in it punch for punch. I don't think we see an upset here. I think the Saints eke out a victory, but if you're going to give me 7 points, I'll take that all day long.
Well, speaking of that, so Drew, I mean, like we're looking at 7 points at currently 1.96, but how far down would you go to get that half a point? Is 1.85 a Matchbook?
Yeah, I would play it down to +6. In fact, I like +6. If you can, if you see +6 manifest as a handicap and you're getting over 2.0, I would take that in a heartbeat. I think that is probably the right sell point here. I don't really see much of an advantage going all the way to say +3.5 or +4. I like, but I like the prices that you're seeing right now market wide at +6, and if that manifests at Matchbook, I would get on that.
Yeah, +6 currently available at the time of recording, 2.18. Not bad.
Nice.
Not bad at all. Brad Allen, Drew touched on it there. The other Drew Brees regression. I'm pretty sure you're in the same total agreement on that one.
So similar views, slightly different ways to get at it. So I've posted up on the money line, which is 3.2 big at 3.5 something.
3.7 currently, Brad.
3.7. I think. I mean, Drew touched on the total, 52.5 at the minute. As I said on the previous podcast we did, I want to be getting some volatility early in the season. With a total that high, I'll get rid of the points and just give me the big money line. I essentially think that the Texans are going to be near unstoppable with. So I mean, they were an excellent offense last year. Obviously, we know who Deshaun Watson is. He's probably a top 8 quarterback. But then obviously they've improved the offensive line, and then they've got back Will Fuller, which I think is huge. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that having a lid lifter, essentially, just having a deep threat like Deshaun Jackson, a lot of research being done just how much more efficient that makes an offense. And I think the key point is,
can he stay fit though? Like, he's always injured, Brad.
We don't need him to stay fit. If he's fit for this game, that's fine. I think the idea is that an NFL field is this tightly strung economy, and if you are having to leave a man deep or put 2 men on this deep threat, it opens up so much space for the rest of the field. And the Texans have weapons elsewhere. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, to take advantage. So I think they're going to score 28 plus, and that should be, that'll put you in a good position to get a bet over the line.
Absolutely. Adam, I don't think this is one that you're massively strong on, but any kind of thing to add to what the guys just said there?
No, it's a stay away for me. I do think that the Texans, after a couple of the moves they made, they sort of got pounded all offseason and throughout the preseason about not doing enough to protect Deshaun Watson. Made a couple key moves late that sort of went unnoticed or really got painted in a bad light. And I think that it definitely improved their offensive line, and any improvement will go a long way in protecting Deshaun Watson, giving him a little bit more time to find his options. I think Drew mentioned something very important about the Saints bringing in a new center. Texans able to generate a lot of pressure. I think that's a pretty clear attack point. If Drew Brees doesn't want pressure anywhere, it's right up the middle in his face just due to the height issues. That's been something throughout his career. So that can certainly upset the game. But I'm pretty down on the Texans as a whole, very down on the Saints too. Just 2 really strong teams. I don't disagree with their price points. So I'm just going to stay away from this one.
Brad Allen, before we move on to the next one, you wanted to come back in on that one?
Yeah, sorry, one more thing is this this kind of Saints trend of being awful in weeks 1 and 2. I think they're 0-10 against the number the past 5 years in weeks 1 and 2.
What about last year, the Bucs at home? They
48-40, wasn't it? I think I can see it being kind of similar to that this week. So yeah, I don't know how much to read into that, but 5 years in a row is quite interesting. It can't hurt the bet, can it?
Yeah, it's got to be something in it. Right, that's Monday night in the books. Should also be a bit of a belter. Let's move on to Sunday night's game. I don't think we're going to spend too long on this because I'm not totally sure there's a massive amount of opinions here, but it's still a pretty marquee AFC matchup. The Patriots at home to the Steelers. Moneyline betting at the moment, you can back the Pats. They're still here, guys. Tom Brady, 142 years of age. Well, yeah, take 100 years off. 1.47 currently a matchbook. The Steelers at 3.18. Current handicap here, 5.5 is your main line. That would have opened 6.5 a couple of weeks ago, and 49.5 is the total. Brad Allen, we're going to give a bit of a spoiler here. You have this as on insights on matchbook.com. You wrote up pretty extensively that you like the Steelers here. Yeah,
similar to the last time. We'll take the big underdog money line on 2 teams I think are very equal, and the Steelers I think are going to be able to score points. I basically wrote that this is still a very good team. They were probably around a true 10-win team last year. They're probably going to be similar to that again. I don't see really any downgrade from losing Brown and Bell, etc. The offensive line is excellent. Ben is still pretty excellent. Now it's also a fade of the Patriots. Brady was showing signs of decline. I know I keep going on about it, but his aggressiveness, his throwing downfield was all at 3-year lows last year. And then he's obviously losing his favourite weapon, who splits with and without Gronk. They are significant. It's more than a yard per pass, I think. And then, without him, the offense to me looks slow. It doesn't look like there's anyone that's going to stretch the field the way I was talking about with the Texans. And then we've got, again, with the Patriots, this historical slow starters where Bill's still tinkering with his team, still working out how to play, what works for them. I just think at 3.18, you said, I just think that's too big a price for very equally matched teams.
Adam Chernoff, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, price-wise, it's pretty similar to what we've seen. The number initially seemed a little bit big to me, but they've played 4 times in the last 3 years. Those point spreads 7, 7, 5.5, and then 2.5 when it was flipped into Pittsburgh. So it's not like super uncommon to see a 5.5, 6 hang around. Was a pretty clear buy point on the Pittsburgh Steelers at 6. I think this game's really decided about what a lot of people aren't talking about, and that's the defenses on both sides. We really know what we're going to get with both offenses on either side of the field, but the who's not playing has really dominated the headlines offensively. But defensively, you get the Patriots, who probably have one of the most underrated secondaries in the NFL. They play the highest rate of man coverage, or they did a year ago. I don't see that declining this year. They have Stephon Gilmore, probably the best corner in the NFL, who can match up really anywhere they put him on the field. But they can go anytime Pittsburgh stretches this out. They can go man. They've got a lot of depth at linebacker this year added in as well. So that's going to benefit them scheming against either Juju coming out of the slot or James Conner out of the backfield. So I think New England can match up very well defensively, but Pittsburgh can do the same as well. And the addition of Devin Bush gives them that width that they can finally defend with since the loss of Ryan Shazier. That's been something they've been missing a lot of, but Pittsburgh really can match up with New England across the field. One spot where I think that they're going to be able to generate a lot of pressure, that's going to play to their advantage. New England, 3 different starters from the Super Bowl team a year ago on the offensive line. The loss of David Andrews is enormous at center, captain the last 2 years for the Patriots team. Really gets along well with Tom Brady. Now they're really uncertain on who they're going to start in this game, but regardless, it's going to be a new face at center. That's key with the communication for Tom Brady. Bill Belichick controlling that offense, controlling the speed at which they go as well. Add in the other 2 missing linemen from a year ago. This line takes a step down. Pittsburgh was able to generate a lot of pressure late in the season last year in this matchup, caused some trouble for Brady. Can probably do the same in this spot as well. Don't see why anything would be significantly different. Patriots going to rely on their running backs. They've got the same 3 guys back again, along with Devlin. Probably going to start off the season going through those guys at a heavy rate just to sort of ease Brady into things. Not that he needs easing in, but we sort of saw the play calling plan of Belichick change a little bit to support him more in the run game. So just from a game state perspective, from a defensive perspective, what the Patriots lost on the offensive line, I certainly understand the buy point at 6 for anyone betting the Steelers.
Drew, obviously I want to ask, have you played this one? But I also want to ask, give me your current thoughts on the Steelers value-wise this season, because obviously we've seen the Browns go into favoritism for the AFC North. Is there been a bit too much of an overreaction to AB leaving and Le'Veon Bell? Like the way I've seen it in the offseason, it almost sounded like from some commentators like the skies were falling in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, I think Pittsburgh probably presents value, and short of the locker room falling apart and quitting on Mike Tomlin, I think that they're going to be a contender and they're a player in the AFC this year. If the ball doesn't bounce their way, if they take a couple unlucky losses early, if the personalities in that locker room kind of deteriorate, you could see things go sideways. But overall, it's a well rostered team. They're strong where you want to be strong in today's NFL. Short of a couple, I wish they had a little bit better coverage players in the secondary. But this is a team that I think is worth keeping an eye on through the first quarter of the season. And I agree, the sides in this game are Steelers and under. Problem is, I didn't think that they were going to get bet so early. I was sitting and watching the market on this one, waiting for the right time to get on the Steelers. At this point, I missed the numbers. I have to kind of wait for the action to happen on Sunday and for all the, presumably the volume will rush in on Patriots and over as we approach Sunday Night Football. And I got to cross my fingers that we see a well-priced 6 again, or we see, the total tick back up to 50 and a half, because I'd like to get under 50 and a half if I could. And I'd like to get Steelers at about a +6 at close to 2.0. I think those will manifest again. It's just a matter of waiting and watching at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on the NFL betting strategy podcast, which you can now download, that when books have liabilities on their teasers and stuff on the favorites, you probably are going to get a bit of buyback. So if you can just wait and hold, the line probably isn't going to go towards 4.5, 5, Drew. You're confident enough that it might just drift towards 6, 6.5.
Well, if it keeps going towards the Steelers, which it may, because I do think they're the right side. I think this is a pretty evenly matched game, and I don't think that you can expect the Patriots to win this one wire to wire comfortably. It's just a matter of whether volume starts to shift the line, which is possible.
Okay, that's Sunday night's action in the books. Earlier in the evening, live on Sky Sports, the New York Football Giants head to Big D to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Current betting on the money line here, the Dallas Cowboys at 1.34. 7.5 is the handicap. It's been drifting and coming in and out all day, obviously, with the news of Zeke Elliott's signing. And as I'm talking, of course, it's now gone back to the main line 7 at Matchbook, but still plenty of 7.5 around. Points total seems to be kind of stabilized at 45.5 as well. Drew, I'll stay with you for this one. Zeke is back. Is that why you're on Dallas? Or are you on the? He might not even play.
I'm not expecting him to be a significant factor in this one. I think this is going to be this is a very tight matchup. Year in, year out, these teams know each other well. I have a lot of respect for Pat Shurmur as a coach in the Giants, even though I don't like the way that Dave Gettleman has rostered this team. I still think that they're going to be, they're a little bit underpriced by the market overall. And on top of that, this being a division matchup and a relatively, well-matched set of teams, I think this is going to be a relatively low-scoring game, and we're going to see, some differentiating factor in the second half. This is probably going to be a field goal type of decision. So I'll take the points in this one. And a lot of my thinking here really is that we're not going to see the Cowboys offense look especially efficient right now. New play caller, don't really know that they've had a lot of reps in camp with the team that's going to be out there. Don't love the news that I'm hearing about Amari Cooper's foot injury and how effective he'll be. And that's really the only way you can attack this Giants defense with a high degree of confidence is through the air and kind of the deep middle passing game. And it's just not. I'm not expecting this to look like a sharp offense, and I think that does present value then on backing the Giants at 7.5 at 1.91, 1.93.
0.93. There you go.
I like 7.5 at 1.93 quite a lot actually. That's my favorite look on this game.
Yeah, you got the hook there with the half point. Very quickly before I move on to Adam on that one, talk me out of backing first half unders in this one. I love backing this Giants Cowboys first half under.
Is 23 still available?
23, flat 23, 1.9 is the under.
That's a beauty.
Good stuff. Adam Chernoff, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, first half under, if you like. I think I already am on under 45.5. I think that's the look to go to for the full game perspective. Zeke rumored, a couple websites came out reporting 20 to 25 snaps. If he actually does play that many, that probably benefits the under quite a bit, because there's a big difference between running in sand dunes in Cabo and then running on an NFL field against live defenders. And he's coming into the game with no experience in the preseason, obviously, no experience in training camp either. So we'll see how effective that turns out to be. But if he is in the game, it gives Kellen Moore, the new play caller, a little bit of a safety net to keep the ball on the ground, keep that offense running a little bit slower, reduce the variance in the game, maybe not get as aggressive as we sort of expect them to be throughout the season. Giants suffering a bit of a cluster injury at the wide receiver position. Obviously lost 2 guys in preseason and camp. But now Slayton and Sterling Shepard both listed as on the injury report, both probably going to play, but how effective they'll be sort of yet to be determined. Really changes what the Giants offense looks like as a whole. They're going to be relying on Evan Ingram as the number 1 receiver, but that probably means that we're going to see the ball in Saquon Barkley's hands a lot more than normally would be expected, which running against this Cowboys defensive front, maybe not the most efficient game plan that they can put together. Regardless, both running backs probably going to feature a lot, or the ground game, depending on who Dallas elects to give the ball for the mainstay of the carries. But that's going to keep things a little bit tight, keep things competitive throughout the game, keep that game state pretty neutral for the course of the game. And I just think it leads to a lower scoring game. And at 45.5, just lower than the key number of 45, which is 6 touchdowns and a field goal. Certainly good enough to get into a bet in my account.
Yeah, you can nearly get it at plus money. It's currently 1.99. You made a point there about Kellen Moore. That must be one of the least inspiring hires and as an offensive coordinator in the offseason I've ever seen. It baffles me on that one. Prof, any thoughts on this one?
I'm on basically the same as these two here. We're going to have some consensus about
agreement. We love Brad. Don't worry, we love agreement. Absolutely love agreement.
We've got Giants plus the 7 at 2.08, and then under 45.5 as well. We don't really need to go over it again, but Zeke's been talking about that he's getting game practice in Cabo. There's no world where there's blitzing linebackers and you've got to pick up the blitz. It's mental. And then obviously, Amari Cooper, the main weapon's injured. And yeah, the Giants were kind of a 7-win team last year based on their core metrics. So yeah, there's no reason they should be 7.5 dogs here.
And divisional game, as we know how those pan out. Right, let's move on to the early games on Sunday. This, as the early game, kind of intrigues me the most of all of them. And Drew, I'll come to you first on this one. But first of all, we'll take some prices on the Rams and Panthers. And we've seen a lot of Panthers money today. It was 3 yesterday. 2.5 is the spread at the moment. You can back the Panthers 2.23 on the money line, and the Rams on the money line at 1.78. And the total is a flat 50, slightly favouring the under. Drew, move on Carolina. Are you in agreement?
I understand the argument. There's a lot of people who really are, really high on Carolina this year. But for me, this is an easy wait and see. I need to see Cam Newton in real game action. Not only do I need to see that his shoulder is 100% and that he can move the ball down the field effectively in the passing game. But he picked up an injury in the preseason game against the Patriots that was a little concerning as far as limiting his mobility. And he's only a dynamic playmaker if he has both things going full speed for him. And so, I will easily kind of stand back and wait and see that for that to manifest. However, I do think that this total is awfully bettable into the over. I think we have some pretty high efficiency offenses going here. I like. I doubted a lot of what Norv Turner had done in his, through his later stages of his career up until last season, where he adapted on the fly pretty quickly to doing some of the more advantaged things that you do in today's NFL. And the fact that he was able to integrate, a first-round running back pick in McCaffrey the way they have on both sides of the offense, passing and running, is pretty impressive. I like the emergence of their wide receiver core. I don't know. So basically, I don't know if they have enough to come back if they get down to the Rams here and get a win or get inside the number. But at 50, this is a bettable over to me.
I want to play a slight devil's advocate here, because would you be any bit worried after Super Bowl performance and taking in the fact that Goff, Gurley, and Aaron Donald haven't played at all this offseason, would you be worried about maybe a slow start for the Rams?
I had kind of had that opinion in years past under the McVay system, and I was a doubter in McVay. As his first year as a head coach, I was like, this was a bad hire. This isn't going to work. And then they come out week 1 and they lay 40 something against the Colts.
Right, yeah.
It was pretty incredible. But I think I don't think that enough has changed really on as far as the weapons and the scheme goes to be concerned about a slow start. The only real turnover that we're seeing on the Rams team is at the center and the guard position. And at first I was like, still on the Rams this year, this is going to disrupt their offense. This is going to be a problem. But the more I've dug into it, the center and the guard were kind of old last year. They sat out a lot of practice, and these two guys took a lot of first-team snaps all throughout the season last year. So this was a transition that they knew was coming, and I think they're going to be prepared for it. And I would expect the Rams to get into the 28 range here, and then it's just a matter of can the Carolina Panthers answer? And I think they have the tools to do it.
Absolutely. And of course, you can play the team totals as well if you're confident enough that the Rams will get that themselves. Adam Chernoff, any thoughts on this one? Which way are you leaning?
Yeah, I think just sort of to echo what Drew said, that there's a lot of things that point to a lot of points being scored in this game. If you look at what you have to do as an offense to negate the strength of the LA Rams defense, that's get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly, have lots of speed in the receivers, and have a running back that can be effective on the ground. And the Carolina Panthers certainly have all three of those, and it's actually been emphasized over the last 12 months, but specifically in preseason and camp, as Norv Turner's working with Cam Newton to change up the throwing motion. We're seeing it a lot more compact, a lot more efficient. Last year, it was all about the short throws and getting accurate opportunities for Cam. He had one of his highest passer rating and completion percentage seasons of his career. Going through the preseason and training camp and all the practices, it was about short passes, getting the ball out very quickly from his hands. So if he's able to do that, and Norv Turner can put together a game plan, which doesn't require much change, and we're not looking at an offensive scheme that has lots of long developing routes or anything. So it's not like it's just more focus on what they've already been emphasizing, which benefits this Panthers offense well with Moore and Samuel, McCaffrey in the backfield, Olsen on the injury report, but probable to play. If they're just continuing on doing what they're doing and reinforcing what they've done in practice, that's going to negate a lot of this Rams rush with Cam getting the ball out quickly. From the Rams perspective, they're facing what's really not being talked about as one of the worst secondaries in the NFL, and Ron Rivera and all his teams sort of carry over with this defensive-minded Riverboat Ron aggressive defense. But you look, it's not only one of the most inexperienced secondaries, but one of the worst cover secondaries in the NFL. It gets even worse when they get stretched out into nickel defense. The Rams love to run out of that 3 wide receiver set with a tight end, 11 personnel, do it 95% of the time. My really question for LA is, what is McVay going to change this year? We saw him really get out-coached in the Super Bowl, has been very quiet in the offseason, became very predictable enough to the extent that the Patriots repeated exactly what the Bears did to them on defense earlier in the regular season. I think there's a couple changes coming to his playbook. We're going to see a couple different things that the Panthers probably don't account for either, and it's just going to be a matter of 2 efficient offenses going at it for 4 quarters, moving the ball pretty consistently, and it's really might come down to who has the ball last, that type of narrative game. But at 50, it just seems like this one's being shortchanged just a little bit on the total. Certainly understand the movement from the side, but I would much rather be involved in the total than I would on the side, given how I expect this one to play out.
All right, agreement there with Drew and Adam. Brad, I won't come to you on this one because you've got a pretty strong opinion on insights.matchbook.com. So let's drive a bit of traffic there, Brad, and we'll try to get paid for that. Let's move on to Sky's early game on Sunday. I'll be honest, guys, when I saw the Titans of the Browns, I was like, yeah, but thank God for NFL Red Zone on Sky Sports Mix. Brad, I'm going to come to you for this one because I think you're pretty intrigued by it, so you're a lot more excited about this one than I am. Cleveland Browns a 5-point favorite. Imagine, guys, on NFL Week 1, the Browns are a favorite at home. Oh my gosh, how times have changed. And you can back them at 1.45 on the money line if you're so inclined. 3.16 the Titans, and 45.5 is the total. Brad, we've got to talk about the Browns. What do you think?
Yeah, as if we were going to let a podcast go by without talking about our beloved Cleveland Browns, especially now they're good as well. Right, so this game for me is probably the most interesting on the board. So the last couple of days, I really want to back the Browns, right? So I've been going around to basically all these smart NFL people I know. You were next on the list, guys. Basically trying to find a reason to back the Browns.
Get ready, Drew. Get ready for the arguments here. Get ready.
I was about to text you guys, I promise. And I cannot find anyone with a model or projection system that makes the Browns value at 5.5. You know, most of them come out. I'd say 4. It would be a consensus number. But I think that the number is wrong, right? So you look at Football Outsiders; they projected it close to 4 this game. And all these season-long stuff, they peg the Browns around 9, Titans around 8, which, you know, is why 4 is probably a fairish line according to that. But I think it's wrong because I think these systems are including too much of the shit Browns. If I'm allowed to swear, the bad Browns, the Hugh Jackson Browns, the Hugh Jackson, and what was the offensive coordinator called? The idiot. Todd
Haley.
Yeah. And yeah, they were terrible. But in the second half of last year, they took off. Baker was like a top 5 quarterback by DVOA. And so all these systems going, well, they've got to come back a little bit down to earth because, you know, the full season is more predictive than the second half. And I don't think it is. I think Baker is like a top 6 NFL quarterback. They brought in Odell Beckham Jr., who I think is the best receiver in the NFL when he plays. The defensive line here is going to absolutely terrorize this Tennessee Titans, who won't have a left tackle. Their right tackle tore his ACL in December, and he was awful last year anyway. So I think if you actually look at the player matchups on the field, I think 5.5 might be value. But I wanted to throw it open to the group because, as I said, I can't find numbers to back it up.
Oh, you make good sense there in that sense. I mean, like if you're playing Tennessee, I'm obviously not a defensive coordinator or anything, but I'm surely you just stack the box and make Mariota beat you with his arm. Drew, what are your thoughts on the Browns?
Yeah, no, I think I agree that there is at this point a little bit of value on the Browns. And I agree with your original sentiment that, oh, great, this is the game that's on TV, because I think this one will be a snoozer. I really, really like the under here. There are a lot of things going for the under on this one, potentially some weather even, which I didn't even count on when I got it down on the under. The Titans, have put their kicker on IR. They're gonna, trot a guy out there who can't make kicks from 44 yards. So, and on top of all this, you have a Browns defense that's generally being wildly underrated. I know that, we don't really want to get too much into, how much defense is going to matter in this game, but, I don't see how the Titans score over 13 points, to be honest with you. This is going to be a real struggle for this team. I don't have any confidence in Mariota being healthy or being an answer at quarterback, for this team. And even if he is, the weapons in the passing game are pretty weak. The offensive coordinator that was, you brought up Kellen Moore was an uninspiring hire. How about Arthur Smith? Like in what universe this guy's resume, indicates he should be an NFL offensive coordinator. He may completely, impress and overwhelm me. And
how is that possible, Drew? I mean, you see all these really cool offenses in college. You could surely get these guys from college and
I have no idea. This guy came up, coaching. He was the mighty tight ends coach for the Titans. That was some impressive unit that completely changed the NFL. No way. So I think this is going to be a real challenge for the Titans to score points. I think you're going to see quite a lot of intention on the Titans' part to try to play ball control, keep the ball out of the dynamic playmaking hands of Baker Mayfield and some of those weapons on offense, because that's their best chance in this game. And so if game script is playing slow, if we have a little bit of weather, if we have any kind of the Browns, pressure's on these guys to a degree, and they may have a little bit of a learning curve here in the first quarter of the season as they find themselves on offense. So I'm not expecting this to be just this wide open dynamic game that where we're seeing 30 to 20 kind of thing here. So under 45.5 is maybe my favorite total on the whole card.
Yeah, I love the case you make there, because obviously if you're thinking the Titans even score 13, you could still give 31 to the Browns, they still won't cover the total. Yeah. Adam, just before I come to you, Brad, you wanted to quickly come in and back into that one.
Yeah, just a quick note on pace to kind of back up Drew there. The Titans were 29th pace per game last year, and then after Freddie Kitchens took over the Browns offense, they were 29th in pace as well. So going to be very, very slow.
Adam Chernoff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when you come to betting the Browns this season, it's all about price point. And to do just a little bit of a local comparison for all the great folks watching back in Ireland, when I lived in Colombia, I had a choice between two stouts when I went out, Guinness and Murphy's. And Guinness was about $10 per pint, and Murphy's was about $6.50. Murphy's was always the better value, but when you had a Guinness, there was always that marketing aspect, the process, the pour, and it was great. And the Cleveland Browns, very similar. They have all the players, they have all the roster, they have all the narrative behind them, they have everything going for them, and they're great. But the question is, when are they more valuable than the alternative price point within the market? And when you're comparing those, going back to the stout comparison, you'd have the Guinness on the special occasion, you pay a little more, you'd feel good about it, but you couldn't do it every single week because you were always overpaying and your bank account was at zero at the end of it. Same thing goes for the Browns, right? We know that they're overpriced. We know that everyone's paying more for them. It's driving the price up. It becomes a question of when is the best time to back them and when is the best time to oppose. And this is certainly not a spot where I want to oppose the Browns with the Tennessee Titans. And I think that's why we've seen this price hold right where it is for the entire week, because the Browns are priced to the highest extent possible. We knew that that was going to come. So it's very difficult to make a case to bet the Browns at this price point. But unfortunately, there's not a case to back the Titans at this price point either. So the number's sort of stuck, inflated about 1.5 points, as we've already talked about, and it's not budging whatsoever. And it's just because it's very difficult to make a case for the Browns at this price point, and then there's nothing to come back and counter with the Titans at this inflated number. So it's a complete stay away for me.
Drew, you wanted to come back in that one? Yeah,
I want to piggyback right on that point. If this goes as we're expecting here, I'm capping this at about a 24-13 kind of a win for the Browns, and or even more dominant from the Browns defense, where they just throttle these guys. There's a potential there. You're going to see some pretty heavy overreaction on both of these teams next week. Titans are a team that the public is generally not fond of right now. Browns are a team that they're very high on. And I say public, the market overall is kind of reflecting this. And next week, we're looking at look-ahead lines where the Titans are, under a field goal at home against the Colts and Jacoby Brissett. whereas the Browns are on the road as a pick 'em against the Jets. So, if keep an eye on both of those lines. If this game goes the way we're thinking and the Browns get a pretty comfortable win and throttle this team.
Yeah, for a game I had no interest in, guys, you're making me very interested. I love backing under too when you're watching a red zone. You just never get to see the game. It's fantastic. Adam Chernoff, props to you. You got your Murphy's and Guinness mentions in there. That's covered for this year's podcast. That came up early. And just an FYI, Murphy's is actually brewed a 5-minute drive from behind me here in our Cork head office studio.
We can do an on-site weekly recording if you like.
Absolutely. I can move down there and I'm going to show you how you can pour a pint of Guinness or Murphy's even, but Guinness is still a better stove. Right, enough of that. Let's move on to one of other Sunday night's later games. Well, we'll say later games, but the 9 o'clock kickoffs here in the UK and Ireland. Cincinnati Bengals at the Seattle Seahawks. Current betting. Obviously, Seahawks pretty short here, so we won't even mention the money line. But the main handicap, main point spread is 8.5. No, it's Seattle laying 8.5, and you can back the Bengals plus 8.5 at 1.97. Total is 44. Drew, I'll start with you here first. Are you a believer in the Zach attack? And do the Bengals got to cover?
A Zach attack has a lot to prove. Again, another offensive coordinator with virtually no track record here.
And no play calling experience. Yeah, great.
And no play. Yeah. So this is going to be a huge question mark. But actually, that plays into backing the Bengals here in a lot of ways. And, the true knock on Andy Dalton, he's not a great quarterback. We know this. We have a track record. But a lot of what has made him ineffective as a quarterback is familiarity. He only has a certain set of things that he can do well. And once you've seen him a couple times, you know what those things are, and you know how to prepare for them. You know how to compete. You know how to force him to be uncomfortable. I think you throw all that out the window here with the Seattle team that I don't really love their pass defense in general. I don't love their coverage cornerbacks are not great. I like the weapons even without AJ Green in the passing game here for the Bengals. And then on top of all that, we don't know what to expect from Zach Taylor. He's going to give us some looks that are, surprising, confusing. And 8.5 is just a lot of points between two teams that we just don't know a lot about yet. And I'll take that anytime. And I think you're looking at an inflated number here on the Seahawks because people are expecting sort of the standard home field advantage here to be built in for Seattle. But this isn't a primetime game. This is a game they're expecting to win. I don't know if the energy in the stadium is going to be what you usually see when you have these, huge home field advantages, tip the scales in favor of the Seahawks. And on top of all that, one of the things I think is pretty underaccounted for as far as home field advantage goes is when you're traveling to Seattle, it's a long trip. Most of the East Coast teams, this is a tough trip. But here we are. You have a completely rested team. You've had a whole week off to prep for this. You had a comfortable trip out to the West Coast. This is your first game of the season. Everybody's, who's playing is going to be in, pretty top shape here. We've seen this similar situation a couple of years ago where the Miami Dolphins, who are just totally expected to be also rans in a given season, they fly out to Seattle. They were like, double-digit dogs in that game, and they put up a damn decent fight. And I'm expecting the same here out of the Bengals, who I think, people forget about a lot of the talented players on this team who missed last year from injury. And I think this is going to be a pretty competitive game. I expect Seattle to get the win, but I think that Bengals come in inside the number.
Brad Allen, from reading your piece on insights.matchbook.com, I think you're in agreement with this, but you're kind of tacking it a different way.
Yeah, I'd like the under, mainly because of the way we know the Seahawks are going to want to play. My view of it is that they're just going to be. I think they're going to have enough to get a couple of early scores. I think they'll probably put Lockett in the slot, where the Bengals slot corner is not super efficient, and I think they'll probably have some early success and then just ram it down the Bengals' throat for 3 quarters, which I see that going under because of that, and it also, obviously the fewer points the more likely you are to stay with 8.5, 9. So I think we see it broadly similarly.
Adam Chernoff, your thoughts?
I want to talk myself in the back in the Bengals, but for the same reason that Zach Taylor and the new coaching crew presents some value of uncertainty. If you tracked what they did through the preseason, they consistently had communication practices where basically all of the coaching staff would put on the headsets that you use on the sideline because no one's ever called plays before or used them to communicate. They would put them on and they would just practice getting plays in and out of the huddle and talking to each other. And it was a problem for the Bengals throughout the preseason. With all the penalties, it was constantly every press conference after games. communication issues, operation issues, communication issues. Now you have to go to Seattle.
Sorry to be cutting across. Just can you clarify that? So they can't actually call plays. Is that what you're saying? The issue is that Zach Taylor cannot get plays into the quarterback.
Yeah, so every head coach or offensive coordinator that calls plays, they use headsets to communicate back and forth. But because this coaching operation is brand new in their position, Zach Taylor was intentionally having time in practices throughout the preseason to just practice communicating on the headsets. And it was a point of struggle throughout the 4 preseason games for the entire coaching operation. Now you look at them in their first real game going into Seattle, which is the most difficult stadium in the NFL to communicate in. I think that that's going to pose some issues. That's really the only thing that is sort of hampering me from being on the Bengals here, because their defensive front matches up very well against the run game for Seattle. If there's a strength on the Bengals defense, it's at stopping the run, containing the run game as well. So I think Seattle might not be nearly as efficient in the running game as we've known them to be over the last little bit. The shot plays are probably going to have success with Russell Wilson. A little bit limited with the absence of Doug Baldwin, some playmakers moving on. Bigger contract forced them to move out. So it's really going to be dependent on Lockett, whose efficiency numbers are off the charts. But again, it comes down to the role that he was sort of fit in with this offensive scheme in years past. So can't really quite value that to the fullest extent possible. So I think that it's going to be a competitive game. I think Seattle slows it down a little bit. Game state plays a lot into this total key number of 44 as well, that you want to watch how it moves around that as well. But as much as I'd like to back the Bengals, I'm just concerned about the preparedness of this coaching staff going into Seattle and putting together the game plan needed to keep it close.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's just too early in the season for me to be backing the Bengals. I just want to save that torture for later in the season if I can at all. But great points being made all the same. Adam, I'm going to stick with you for this one because I think this is one you're most excited about this week, going off your preview insights.matchbook.com. The San Francisco 49ers, they head down to Florida to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Current betting, I looked at this yesterday. Bucks were favorites. It's flipped. San Francisco very slight favorite now, 1.96 on the money line, 2.0 on are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you can lay a point with the 49ers and back that at 2.01. Total is 51, slightly favoring the under, Adam, and you're liking the over in this one.
Yeah, I would expect that number to get to 52. I took 49 and a half. If you're looking at 50 and a half, 51, I put the insights column on the first of the year. Try get 51 and a half around 2.09. I'm assuming by the movement, since we started recording, people have been reading it and probably took that. But it's going to keep going up. I think this total was held down a little bit because of the hurricane news. There was some wind lingering, and they weren't really sure when it was going to hit northern Florida. Thankfully, it's going to miss most of that, as well as the Carolinas. Not going to be nearly as much of a factor. Now that that weather news is sort of out of the way, I think this total will really open up and start going up as well. But you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think in my lifetime anyway, this is my 12th season betting the NFL, I think it's the best offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach acquisition in an offseason that I can think of off the top of my head. Phenomenal get with Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich, great players coach. But what they bring more importantly to this team is the philosophy of just flat out aggression. Arians, no risk it, no biscuit. Byron Leftwich in his press conference says, I'm no risk it, no biscuit, part 2. And so, I mean, they're all about offense, letting the ball go, getting the ball out of Winston's hands into these playmakers, looking how they match up against the 49ers defense. 49ers played one of the highest rates of cover 3 last year. They love to bring 4 rushers and that's it, and then sit back in a very soft zone. That makes them vulnerable on the seam, but it also makes them vulnerable to anyone running out in the flat. And you look at this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, they've got 3 brilliant route runners and then the best tight end in the league in O.J. Howard. Now that Gronkowski's down, he was second last year in air yards per attempt, yards per route run. Brilliant route runner, but also very good at that seam pass. Perfect to exploit for Winston in this situation. I think the Buccaneers really push back this 49ers secondary, which is I have graded as one of the worst 5 in the NFL going into the season. Outside of Sherman, they don't really have anyone that can cover man-on-man, so they're going to be really dependent on that zone rush. If they can get pressure with the front 4, could cause a little bit of trouble, but I'm hoping that the Buccaneers offensive line can hold up enough to get the ball out of Winston's hand. Flip the script around, you're looking at Kyle Shanahan. Before when they acquired Jimmy G 2 seasons ago. He was entering last year as one of the most hyped up offensive coaches. This offense was getting all the accolades. The price was going through the roof. Obviously, the injuries derailed a lot of that season, but the team still finished very high in offensive efficiency, and it shows just how good of a coach he is. Now they enter the season, everyone's healthy. Surprising to some, Pettis ends up as the number 1 wide receiver on the depth chart, Goodwin number 2. They have Kittle at tight end, but then they have Tevin Coleman, who I think is very underrated in the absence of Jerick McKinnon, who's going to be out for the rest of the season. Coleman, one of the fastest running backs in the league. Great at getting him schemed outside is Kyle Shanahan, who really relies on these guys in the backfield as receivers. But matched up against the Buccaneers defense, Tampa Bay, great front 7. You go outside of that, it's troubling. And what Todd Bowles loves to do is blitz more than any defensive coordinator in the NFL. Loves to bring that extra guy. For the 49ers, it's a matter of patience. Just wait for Bowles to blitz, and then Jimmy G can absolutely pick apart this secondary, which I have graded one of the worst 3 cover units in the NFL. So you get 2 brilliant offensive minds, 2 very aggressive head coaches, 2 extreme matchup advantages throughout the offensive field. It's just going to be, I think, a game that opens itself up for a lot of points. Any sort of projections, play calling distribution, just using averages to project out what we might expect from the box score. I'm getting 53 at a low end, 55 at a high end. I think it's a no-brainer taking over on this price. Have some more on Matchbook insights, getting a little more in depth, but I really like this over quite a bit.
I could not agree more with you about that Bruce Arians point. And if anyone can get it out of Jameis Winston, it's him. It surely is. Brad Allen, you have some thoughts on this one?
Yeah, just a question really. I read the piece earlier. I thought it was very interesting. My concern with this Bruce Arians Bucks offense is that they do want to throw deep, but they don't really have the offensive line for it. If you ask me, it looks like a bottom 5 in the league group. And then the strength of the 49ers is probably that pass rush, as Adam said. So it seems to me there is some concern that Jameis is going to be dropping back with these 7-step drops, and he's going to be met, by Solomon Thomas or someone in his face. So yeah, I would just wonder what Adam thought of that.
Adam?
Yeah, for sure. So a big thing to note is, and definitely thought of that too in the Arians offensive scheme, it's a lot of deep downfield passing, a lot of double moves, a lot of routes that take a long time to develop. Byron Leftwich is taking over play calling duties. And what I really like about him is, though to be guided by Arians to an extent, he proved last year that he was really good at game planning week to week and putting his players in a specific spot to succeed. I think a really good example of that was the emergence of David Johnson week to week after they got rid of their previous offensive coordinator. So I think that with the extra prep time to prepare, he's going to have he's got a lot of tools and speed across the field that he can use to either shorten up the route packages or get those players in positions to find space a lot quicker. And I think he's going to become well prepared for this 49ers defense, which despite the pass rush, I really like that he's going against the zone cover defense. They played one of the highest rates of zone last year, 7th most in the NFL. I think that benefits Winston as well, as these guys can just find the space and sit down quickly. A lot better than having to wait for guys to find space in the man coverage. So I think that this one still sets up, despite that 49ers pass rush, well for the Buccaneers.
True, it's tough to pick a side in this one. Have you played a side?
It's taken me a long time to get here, but I'm on the Bucs on this one right now. You're going to, the knock against Winston, he makes some poor decisions. He, rushes throws at times. He, give, some inopportune interceptions. But you look at the defense that he's going against, and I think Adam was being kind, even saying Richard Sherman can cover. I mean, Richard Sherman could cover 5 years ago. The same player is not taking the field on Sunday. And what was, and granted, it's tough to hang any kind of weight on this. And it's wild because we're talking about the San Francisco 49ers, who are, their GM is former Buck great John Lynch, who is master of, the turnovers and the secondary, one of the great secondary players of the late 90s, early 2000s. And their secondary in San Francisco is so bad. It's so poor. They were historically poor at creating interceptions last year, which I know is not necessarily a skill, but they got 2 interceptions all season last year after facing almost 600 pass attempts. That's it's literally impossible if you go back through football time. It's impossible to find that low an interception rate. I calculated the Z-score at some point. For those of you who are real statistics nerds, the Z-score was -5 if you go all over the last 10 years in terms of interception. It was that impossibly low. So that should improve, yes, but here we go. We're looking at a Bucs quarterback in Winston whose only kind of, potential flaw is he throws too many interceptions and he's going against a defense that can't pick off the ball. So, I think that is a pretty nice differentiating factor. And as far as the total goes, I like all of Adam's points on the over. I think the over is a fair look. I think you might be able to get a better number if you wait till halftime.
Okay, I like it, and the way the line is moving, Drew, I think you're going to get a bit of value on the Bucs. You could get a 2.1, 2.2, and maybe 1.5, 2%. But obviously, we're going to take the money line there. Right, guys, we covered a lot there, but obviously, there's a lot of games we didn't cover. So I'm just going to ask each one of you, just roughly, is there something else that's kind of we didn't cover there that you're liking? Brad, I'll start with you first on this one.
End with me, please, Sully.
Okay.
Let me just get the games up.
Adam Chernoff, I'll come to you for that one.
Want me to fill time with Jets futures until Brad's ready?
Jets Bills, you're kind of liking the over in that one as well.
I think it's the most interesting battle of the week in terms of the market going back and forth. We saw a lot of money come in at over 39.5, over 40. That one came back at 41 as well. From just a handicapping perspective, I think you kind of have to lean to the over based on the upside both of the offenses bring. Jets pretty banged up on defense, linebacker, secondary as well. I think that opens up for Buffalo. Big sort of wild card in this one that could potentially derail that handicap and has me sort of looking elsewhere is the Buffalo Bills defense. Very good man coverage, very aggressive. Jets offensive line, couple guys on the injury report there, the monitors. So see how that one plays out. But certainly understand to move up with the over in that one.
Drew, anything else jumping on for you?
I'm on that one as well. I like that Jets Bills over quite a lot actually. I think we've hit all mine. We got about 9 plays in total. A lot of dogs this week. I think dogs will pretty much rule the weekend. It's worth the other note, maybe the late night game on Monday. If you guys are first half under aficionados, we are big time. Yeah. One right there, man. That has 3-0 at halftime written all over it.
Oh, how is it that every time I look at Monday Night Football for the last 5 years, I see the Raiders this turn? I'm like, oh, Jesus.
That's the worst. They're the worst. It's so bad.
The great thing is, Drew, we normally get to see the fourth quarter by the time we get up to go for work. So it's never really worth watching even then.
You'll figure out who wins the game because it'll be 3-0 still. So
that is true. Yeah, absolutely.
The decision will be in doubt.
Knock on wood if you agree with this bullshit. Yeah, whatever. Brad Allen, what have you got?
Yes, I like those two. Like the over in the Jets game, like the under in the Raiders game, and then one more would be the over in the Arizona game. I think we might see Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray come out, run no huddle. And I think they might take the league by storm for the first 3 weeks before the offensive line caves in and Kyler's brain gets caved in as well. But I think we get some points early.
Talk about hiding your offense in preseason, by the way. But let's be honest about it. Defenses tend to catch up in this league so far. So if you catch them for the first week or two, you may not catch them then. Right, we're in quad box mode now, and we're going to talk about one bet for the weekend. Obviously, I know that we're probably going to place multiple bets, given it's the first week of the NFL season. We're excited, and obviously, bankroll management is key in week one because this is a marathon, not a sprint. But if I had to give you all one bet for the weekend, I'm going to start the top left of the screen. Very quickly, Adam Chernoff, what's your best bet of the weekend?
49ers, Buccaneers over. Look for 50. If you see 51.5 on the exchange, look for anything better than 2.05. Anything else, just take it straight up as close as you can to 1.91. Okay,
Brad Allen.
Cardinals, Lions, over 47.
Love it. Drew.
I'm going to go under 45.5 in this Browns game. And if you're a little nervous about the Browns' potential offensive explosion and you want to circle just Titans team total under, that's a beauty as well because those Titans are going to have a tough time breaking 20 this weekend.
Fantastic. Love fading the Titans. Brilliant. Love that. I'm going to be a bit cheeky here because I'm calling last, but I have 2 that I like. 2 first half unders under 20. Yeah, under 22.5, the Chargers and the Colts. I'll go into that some other time. And under 23, first half under in the Giants and the Cowboys.
Love it.
Good one.
First half unders all the way. Gotta love it. Yeah, just on that Colts one, guys, you can talk me out of that very quickly before we wrap up. I just look at the Chargers' pace of play again last year. My God, they burned a lot of play clocks. And I can see the Colts trying to get into a shootout here with Jacoby Brissett under center. They're going to run the ball. And in fairness, I haven't probably dug into it that much, but I think that Colts defense, unless they've lost guys that I haven't seen, they were pretty decent last year. They can kind of keep up with a few teams. So that's my angle on that one. That's probably the best one. That's trending down. That's 22.5 at 1.88 currently Matchbook. So if we can stay above 21.5 key number, we shall do. Gentlemen, absolute pleasure. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching, or thank you for listening if you've downloaded the Matchbook Betting Podcast. Don't forget, we'll be back next week. If you haven't got a Matchbook account and you do want to get involved this week, sign up to matchbook.com for a £10 risk-free bet. You can have it on the Bengals, and if they lose, you get your money back. So what are you going to do? Can't say fairer than that. Best of luck with your week one bets. Enjoy it. We're all super excited here at Matchbook with the guys. We'll be back next week to take you through week 2.